Hello. Os Guinness, Fit Bodies, Fat Minds. I think this is essential reading for any Christian, part of anybody's basic library. Os Guinness is a British evangelical author who is famous as a speaker on apologetics in his North American ministry, which started in 1984. As far as I know, he still lives in America. Yes, he is one of those Guinnesses whose names are splattered all over Great Britain, you inescapable Guinness of British pubs. He is also famous for something other than beer. He's part of the Guinness family that was for so long intimate with the China Inland Mission, one of the most famous missionary institutions in the world. But as I said, he's lived in America since the 1980s, and in 1994 he published this. I'll read you the subhead as well. Fit Bodies, Fat Minds, Why Evangelicals Don't Think and What to Do About It. His thesis in this book is that the evangelical community in North America has been out of its mind for 200 years. There are 3 parts in the book. The last 2 of those 3 are titled An Idiot Culture and Let My People Think. And in those 2 parts, Guinness takes us through the reasons for the crisis, including Neil Postman's famous thesis about amusing ourselves to death. Postman thought that the crisis was brought on by our fascination with visual media. And of course that book came out before this, and Postman's thesis has been vindicated by, of course, the transformations in media even since the 1980s. The first part of the book is entitled A Ghost Mind. And in the first part of the book, Guinness gives us 8 P's, which he feels sum up the reason that we're in this predicament today. The 8 P's that create the ghost mind, according to Guinness, are polarization, pietism, primitivism, populism, pluralism, pragmatism, philistinism, and premillennialism. By which, by the way, he doesn't mean classic premillennialism, but the dispensational kind that is so everywhere in the media, specifically on television. By these 8 P's, Guinness maintains, we have created this dilemma for ourselves that has essentially taken us out of our mind for 200 years. At the end of the book, here's his conclusion about the things we can do and the crisis we face. He says, one of the greatest sadnesses of a thinking evangelical is knowing that the thousands who have left and are still leaving evangelicalism because evangelicals do not think. It was not always so. We have noted the Puritans. Similarly, the evangelicals around William Wilberforce were described as a group whose brains and brilliancy could not be denied even by those who sneered at their religion. To be sure, the defections have been more than offset by the fruits of our witnessing. Even today, in the 1980s and 90s, even today, the thousands who have left evangelicalism for Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, or, far worse, for agnosticism and atheism, are greatly outnumbered by the millions who are becoming evangelicals worldwide. So he's making the case that we are more impressed by numbers than we are by quality. In other words, the quantity of new disciples, as we perceive discipleship, is offsetting, in our minds at least, the quality of discipleship that we are losing and are still losing. Ernest Howes, by the way, is the author of that quote that we just read about William Wilberforce. Some of you will be aware that William Wilberforce and his generation, often called the Clapham sect, were responsible 200 years ago for the abolition not only of the slave trade, but later slavery itself in the Western world. They gave the impetus to the efforts of Lincoln and the abolitionists in the Civil War to get rid of slavery in America as well. And Wilberforce and the Clapham sect also led us to great reforms in social conditions, both in Britain and in the rest of the Western world. So, what created the respect with which Wilberforce and Clapham were able to push back the enemy. Even those who disagreed with them about their evangelical convictions were unable to resist the force of Wilberforce's argument and the eloquence with which he spoke, both in print and in Parliament. Those who didn't agree with him and the other abolitionists had to respect their intelligence and their eloquence, their brains, their minds. Does the world respect our brains, our minds? Basic reading. Os Guinness, fit bodies, fat minds.
Sorry about that sniffle right there. Otherwise I would have sneezed, and that would have been worse. Just thought I should explain that on video, because that's going to be right there at the end.
Now you're remorse.